Okay, boys and girls, thank you so much to Gabriella and Nathan for all your hard work with our memory verse challenges. And thank you to everyone who is learning their memory verse at home. Well done to you all. Now, if you were out with us on Sunday morning in church, Shirley was doing a memory verse with us, the same memory verse that was set as our challenge for this week. And Shirley was getting us to do some things that are impossible to do. And one of them was to lick your elbow. So how many of you tried to lick your elbow last Sunday morning? And how many of you were able to do it? And if you weren't out with us on Sunday morning, don't worry, you can try it now. Is it possible or impossible to lick your elbow? What do you think? I think it's probably pretty impossible. I'm not sure that I could do it. There might be somebody somewhere in the world who maybe is able to bend their elbows in unusual ways. Another thing that we were talking about that seems impossible to do is to lick your nose with your tongue. Unless you've got a super long tongue, it's impossible to lick your own nose. Now, some of you might be super clever and maybe with a lot of practice you might be able to do it, but for most of us, that would be impossible. And then I was looking up online for some impossible things that are humanly impossible. And apparently it is impossible to tickle yourself. Now, I am a super tickly person. I hate being tickled. And I have tickle spots everywhere. I just do not like being tickled. But despite being a very tickly person, it is impossible to tickle yourself. Go on ahead and try it. Try tickling yourself. Can you tickle yourself? If I was to do it on my feet, it's not tickly. It is impossible to tickle yourself. You can go through the motions of tickling, but it will not feel tickly to you. There are things that are impossible, but our memory verse was teaching us that nothing is impossible for God. With man, it is impossible, but with God, nothing is impossible. All things are possible with God. Now, we were thinking last week about the 3 things that God promised to Abraham, and that was land, children, and blessings. God had promised that through Abraham's family, the whole world was going to be blessed. But Abraham and Sarah were super old, weren't they? But Abraham and Sarah, even though they were super old, and even though Sarah even laughed when she heard the news, Abraham and Sarah did trust God, and they waited, and they waited, and we know that eventually Isaac was born whenever it was humanly impossible for Abraham and Sarah to have babies. That God gave them a boy called Isaac, and then there were more children born into Abraham's family line, and eventually Jesus was born. We've got a little clip coming up now. Well, it's 2 little clips actually. There's a clip about Abraham and there's a clip about Sarah, and both the clips tell us that Abraham and Sarah believed and trusted even when it seemed impossible, and even when they had to wait a super long time, they still continued to trust and believe that God would be faithful and would keep his promise. So we're going to watch the wee clip now, and then when we come back, we're going to read the next part from our Promise Storybook Bible. Okay, hope you enjoy the wee clip.